Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Adam Coulter, and I am the managing editor of Cruise Critic here in the UK. I would just like to welcome you very much to our Cruise Critic, our first Cruise Critic live event, and I am joined today by Hurtigruten. In a moment, I'm going to get our two participants to introduce themselves, but first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. We are scheduled to run for around 45 minutes. So I'm going to chat with these two guys from Hurtigruten for around half an hour or so, and then we are going to have a Q&A session with them. Now, I hasten to add that the questions have been submitted already, so don't try and ask any questions because the question facility now is closed, but we will answer some of your pressing questions towards the end of our conversation. So without further ado, let me introduce, first of all, Jonathan Tramontana and Laura Walters. And Jonathan, if you could start just by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about what you do at Hurtigruten.
Thanks, Adam. My name is Jonathan Tramontana, and I'm the Senior Product Specialist here in the Hurtigruten Americas office. I've been with Hurtigruten for 6.5 years, traveled on 4 different Hurtigruten ships, been to Antarctica and Norway, Antarctica twice. I wear many hats in the company and basically a bridge between the different departments information-wise.
Thank you, Jonathan. Laura.
Hello, Adam. Thanks so much. I'm Laura Walters. I am currently the Senior Guest Relations Advisor in the Americas. I've been at Hurtigruten for 5 years this month, actually. Started here when we opened in Seattle in the reservations department. I've worked in group sales, and then I took on the guest relations role in 2019, just before COVID. So been a fascinating year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later. So now I actually know the answer, I think, to this topic, but a lot of our viewers will not. And our first topic that we are going to tackle today is who is Hurtigruten? Now, before we do that, I must say straight up, I have been lucky enough to sail with Hurtigruten, not once, not twice, but 3 times. In fact, the first time was around 10 years ago, last month, and that was on a coastal voyage all the way to Kirkenes, and we'll hear a little bit more about that momentarily, right on the border of Russia, in fact. And I would not be exaggerating, and I'm not just saying this, by saying those trips were some of the most memorable I've ever done in my life. Real bucket list stuff, and we'll 3 of us will talk about that a little bit more later. I learned a lot about the line on those trips, much about its fascinating history, but I would very much like to hear it in your own words, guys. Now, just before we do that, what we are doing live, as well as the chat, are polls. So I am going to introduce the first poll, and there's going to be a number of polls throughout this. You'll see over to your right, there's a little symbol. If you press on that, you'll have your a number of options there. So before we do, let's kick off with a poll, which you'll find on the right of your screen. And it is, what brings you here today? These guys really want to know that. First of all, are you interested in learning more about expedition cruising? I would love to hear more about what makes Hurtigruten different. I'm planning my next expedition cruise. I'm interested in the special cruise offer. If you could click one of those, we'd be extremely grateful, and I will reveal the poll results in a few minutes' time. So let's kick off our discussion with a big question. Who is Hurtigruten? Now, who wants to start? Jonathan or Laura?
I'll give it to Laura.
Well, that is a big question, but I'll try to keep it short. We began as a company in 1893 along the coast of Norway. If you stretch Norway out end to end, it's really, really long. And so Hurtigruten in Norwegian literally translates into the hurried route, or the shortest route from north to south. So it was started as a service to carry mail, cargo, and of course residents from one end of the coast to the other. And our founder did this with one ship to begin with, and then the route expanded, and then he eventually went up to Svalbard. And now, of course, we are all over the world. So that very original coastal route, 34 ports each direction, so 68 ports of call altogether on the full round trip, Bergen. Still alive and kicking today. Adam's done a portion of it. You can do the whole thing. And it's a unique journey, no question. It is probably the most unique journey in the world.
It is an extraordinary journey. And you say there are 34 ports of call, right?
So, in 7 days, yes.
In 7 days.
Yes.
I think most people are more used to maybe 1 port of call a day. So
yes.
how does that work out, Laura? I mean, presumably you stay longer in some and shorter in others, so you can't
We
possibly.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, each day you can have up to 6 ports of call. Now, some of those are going to be in the middle of the night. They may be 15 to 30 minutes long. But the unique part of our voyage is as you go from north to south or south to north, you are touching those ports at different times of the day. So you don't really miss, quote unquote, the ports if you do the full round trip. And you will be able to see them in the daytime hours and do your excursions and visit the towns. We also have excursion operators that have uniquely designed those excursions. So it may take you off the ship in one port, the ship moves on, you do your excursion, and then you meet the ship at the next port, and the buses will bring you back. You don't have to worry about where your ship is. We'll collect you where it's appropriate. So your excursion time is not minimized or cut short because of our port stops. So
You're not going to miss the ship, no?
Oh, goodness, no.
That's great. I did do one of those. I did snowmobiling in the dark from one port to another, and I can't remember the name, but it was unbelievable experience. So that's fantastic. Now, another question I think certainly on my mind, I've always asked is, you say 1893. Have you been continuously sailing since then? Every day of the year?
Yes. I can say the only pause we've had since 1893 has been during World War II. There was a brief time during the war that we did not operate, but other than that, we have made that route every day, and that includes the past year during COVID. We have sailed our residents and the mail and the cargo up and down the coast, albeit not with a full fleet, but we have continued to sail all through COVID.
Cool. Fantastic. Well, that's a wonderful commitment right there. So the other thing that you're very well known for is, and this is something I'd very much like Jonathan to talk about, is your commitment to research, environmental piece. I mean, right now, for example, super topical, you've got the Alaska Earth Week campaign, and I believe you're doing something connected with that. So, Jonathan, do you want to just tackle the whole environmental piece, tell people a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I mean, so Hurtigruten has been known for the longest time sailing along the Norwegian coast, and we've expanded into expedition cruising, but the environmental piece of it has really become our brand identity recently. And so there's a huge commitment to sustainability, to research, to education. So when you're on our ships, we have citizen science programs, so you can actually participate in active scientific research and contribute that research to the scientific community. We're going to these places so often and so regularly that we can actually collect information over long periods of time, and it really helps the scientific community out, and it really builds a better experience for our customers, a really engaging experience for them. We also have science centers on all of our expedition ships, and there's expedition team members giving lectures. There's biologists, historians, experts in their field, bringing you closer to the destination. So you won't find casinos or nightclubs on our ships. It's very educationally focused. We're supporting local communities. We'll often do raffles at the end of the cruise, and they'll actually benefit the local communities and the organizations that we're sailing to. We have built our new builds, the hybrid electric powered new builds that we have out, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen, the very first of their kind.
I want to talk about that, Jonathan, actually, if you don't mind, because I think the hybrid technology piece is a very interesting one, and it's one that you guys are pioneering. And I think when people think hybrid, they normally think of one particular make of car, don't they? So I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about what does hybrid technology mean, and what does it allow you to do?
Yeah, it's been called. I've heard it been called the new ships, the new builds, been called the Prius of the seas.
That's the vehicle.
And it works very similarly. It's something that honestly we and other companies should have been doing a long time ago. Hybrid technology. I think it's finally caught up as far as viability and cost. But essentially, we've got these huge battery packs on the new ships, and they are harnessing and distributing excess energy because we've got these generators on board, and demand for energy on a ship is not always a flat line. There's peaks, there's valleys, and so when there's a valley in the demand, those batteries are actually storing that excess energy, and when there's peaks, they're delivering it back. And so what we're really doing is being so much more efficient in the energy that we're producing. And it allows us to, that combined with the new design of the hull and wave piercing and just the ability to cut through water more efficiently. All these things combine to make it to reduce emissions by about 20%.
Awesome, fantastic. So there's a commitment there. You're not just saying it with words. And also, can you tell us there's another thing that keeps cropping up associated with you, and it's something to do with dead fish. And I'm just intrigued for what the connection is between dead fish and Hurtigruten.
Right, and that's another example of being more efficient and using what you have. And so, there's a huge fishing industry in Norway, and they have excess. They have waste fish and scraps and things like that. And those, when things break down, they start producing these these gases. And so we're basically converting that into biogas, liquefied biogas, and then using that in our ships. And again, it's a natural process, and we're just instead of creating new fuels, we're actually using something that is existing, and so again, reducing emissions.
That's great. That's amazing. Thank you for explaining that. Laura, Jonathan mentioned about the smaller ships that travel to more remote destinations. Can you tell us, first of all, how small is small? I think viewers would really like to know, what is the definition of small? A lot of people maybe are used to sailing on big ships, thousands of passengers. So if you can define that, and then when you say more remote destinations, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, absolutely. So our ships range in size from, we have the smallest ship is probably 100 cabins or so, so around 200 people. Our largest, the hybrid ships that we're just building, are 500 passengers. So we really wanted to keep them smaller because of that, not just the intimacy and the feel on board, and everybody on board, really gets that family, very, personalized service. But we are able to travel to destinations in those smaller size ships and access places that the larger cruise lines just can't go. Antarctica is a great example. I know Jonathan's been on one of our smaller ships, the MS From. She definitely has access to parts of the peninsula and targeted landing spots because of her smaller size. The same is happening in Alaska. But everywhere we travel in the world, we really try to take you to the most authentic ports that we can. We did this in the Caribbean a few years ago when we started warm water cruising. We didn't just want to go to the usual ports of call where all the large cruise ships are already sailing and sit in line and wait for everybody to get off. We wanted to take you to places like Little Corn Island in Nicaragua, where there really isn't even a pier. We have to tender out, bring everybody in by boat, and it's a very, very unique and authentic kind of throwback to what the Caribbean was like before it was so heavily populated. So everywhere we travel in the world, we're looking for a very authentic, remote, sort of original type experience that you just can't get everywhere else. And we do visit some larger ports and some more traditional ports, but even there, we really want to get you immersive experiences into the culture, into the geography, the landscape of the place, so that you come away feeling like you've really experienced a port, not just stopped for a day and had a drink. That's all lovely, but that's really not what we're about. We want you to feel like you've really been a part of the culture there for the day, or however long we're staying.
We will go into a little bit more detail about the differences between the coastal voyage and the expedition, because there is significant difference, and I think it's something that the viewers definitely need to know about. One other thing before we move on, one of the things that really struck me is you mentioned authenticity a couple of times. Now, I certainly felt that in terms of the Norwegian authenticity. And some people might not know what that means, but if one of you could just explain how Norwegian it is and how immersive it is, both on board and in the destinations you go to along the coastal voyages. I think it'd be really interesting for viewers to hear that.
Absolutely. I'll take it. I'll take it, because I've been on that ship, and the coastal voyage is the best example, but we really have replicated it everywhere we go in the world. Our Norway coastal cruise, of course, all of our captains and crew are from those coastal towns. They are the heart of the coast of Norway, and we have multi-generations sailing on our ships and working on our ships. We have captains who are sons of captains who are sons of captains. So they really want you to get that same family experience, and everyone that comes on board is considered family. And the Norwegian hospitality, I have to say, is quite unique. I mean, it is a very embracing culture. They love their nature. They are so excited to share the country with you. I mean, our expedition team leaders on the coastal voyages describe nature like it's a cathedral. I mean, they are in awe of what they get to show you every day. And we took that out to the rest of the world. And when we travel in other remote parts of the world, they're just as excited as you are. And everybody really does get that, you know, inclusive feeling. And once you become part of the Hurtigruten family, you don't leave. So we want to see you over and over again.
Absolutely. No, I certainly found that on board. They couldn't have been more welcoming, and I loved it when we stopped in different ports. And one person who'd been with us for a few days would get off and wave to the next person coming on because they knew them. It was their town, and I love that aspect of it. Just very briefly, because
yeah, and I was going to say you can't forget about the food as well. I mean, we have the Norwegian coastal kitchen concept where we're stopping in all these ports along the way, and we're picking up ingredients from local farms to make for dinner and make for lunch that night. And so you'll pick up lamb in Aalesund, you'll pick up lingonberries in another port. And so we're taking all this very, very fresh food right from all the ports that we're stopping at. It's a very integral part of it.
I remember that we'd get a set menu that detailing exactly what was caught that day, what was in season, and what we were going to be served, which I absolutely love that. Very
really
mindful of time. Very briefly, I mentioned Alaska in my intro. Can you just talk about what this link to what you're doing with the Alaska Earth Week campaign?
So
just
with the Earth Week campaign, we are donating 1% of our Alaska cruise booking costs over to the Alaska Wilderness League. And so they're an organization that is working to protect the Alaskan wildlife refuge and the environment out there. So we're very excited about contributing donations to that organization. And that promotion is going now through the 26th.
That's great. Good for you guys. Fantastic. Right. Mindful of time. What I would like to do is move swiftly on to the next part of our conversation, but then also I would like to reveal the poll results. So they have come in. Thank you very much, everybody who has participated in that. And of the 4 questions, so the number one answer with 52% of respondents is, I am interested in learning more about expedition cruising. Well, I would say you guys are in the right place. I would love to hear more about what makes Hurtigruten different, 23%. I'm planning my next adventure expedition cruise, 13%. And I'm interested in the special cruise offer, which very nicely leads us into the next section of our conversation, which is about the promotion that you guys are doing. I won't talk about that because I know roughly what it's about, but I want you to talk about it in your own words. But before I do, I would like to just put a second poll out there. So thank you very much for participating in this poll, viewers. But here's the second one coming up. It's right there on the right. When are you planning on your next expedition cruise? This year, 2022? 2023, no specific year in mind. And I'll reveal the answers to that poll in a few minutes. So very briefly, let's have a look at the promotion we've got running here. You guys are giving away, if I'm correct, $200 per adult in onboard credit, and that's a lot of money. And there are a lot of things you could use it on, presumably like shore excursions, specialty dining, which we've just touched upon. What have I missed? Jonathan, Laura, who wants to take that one?
Yep, I'll take this one. It's $200 onboard credit per adult for expedition cruises. Booked now through May 5th. And, we say $200 so it's easier, but all of our expedition cruises are going to be Euro-based on board. And so it'll be, 180 Euro per person. That works out to about $200 a person. And you can use it for anything that you can purchase on board. So we've got the gift shop, we've got the Explorer Bar. There are wellness centers with massages on board for some of our ships. We've got fine dining, and then really great excursions. We can do horseback in Iceland. I've done wine tasting in Santiago, which was very fun. There's wildlife sanctuaries in Alaska. You can do cafe milk in Greenland, sitting down with a local host in their home and having tea and snacks. That's a very authentic, fun experience. So yeah, anything that you can purchase on board.
There's a lot of good stuff. And
lots of options.
I will attest to the fact that you mentioned specialty dining. If you are on the coastal voyage, although I will say the food, as you said, is outstanding. Like if you're on a regular cruise somewhere, it's really nice to try the specialty dining because that really takes it up a notch. I remember we did a king crab excursion and then then we ate the king crab on board. You know, it was that sort of thing. They cooked it up for us, and it's a really nice way to just mix it up a bit. The other thing, I understand that Laura, is it also combinable with this airfare credit promotion? Is that right?
It sure is. Yeah, we have a current promotion running with many destinations included that gives you, you know, a percentage off of the voyage, but also up to $2,500 per person airfare credit. So that can be a huge differentiator if you're trying to get to a place like Antarctica, because the airfare can get a little expensive. So yes, your onboard credit for attending today is definitely combinable with any promotion we have running, including our Earth Day promotions, our air credit promotions, you name it. Just check out the website. You'll find all these details there.
That is a great deal. That really is. So yeah. So you combine that whole lot. There's a lot of money there and offers to play with. So that's fantastic. That's great, guys. Thank you very much for explaining that. There will be more information if you've missed all this detail. It will presumably be on your website, right? So people can pick up on all of that if they miss it. Okay, fantastic. Now we need to move on to the next topic. Before I do. We have got the poll results have come in, and they reveal that so the winner is 37% of people are looking to book their next expedition cruise next year, 2022. So, oops, just gone up to 38%. Looks like it's still live. And the next up is no specific year in mind. That's 35%. 2023 comes in at 22%, but only 5% are looking to book for this year. So just 5% for this year. Great, thank you very much indeed. We are going to have another poll coming up in a minute. But one of the things that I think you mentioned at the very beginning, Laura, was obviously you guys sailed throughout the pandemic, which is laudable. You know, it's something that you, I guess, were required to do, but you chose to do as well to help all those communities, to serve those communities. But I think top of mind for a lot of people who haven't set foot on a ship in over a year are, excuse me, the health and safety improvements or changes or differences that they might expect on board. Now, I know Hurtigruten is small and nimble enough, and indeed, gosh, you've probably been making these changes because you've been sailing throughout the pandemic. So you're probably well ahead of the game in terms of that, because you've had actual real fare paying passengers on board. But I'd love to hear from in your own words, exactly what you have done over the past year or so, and what people can expect when they get on board. And feel free to talk about vaccination requirements and all that sort of stuff too. Who wants to take this very interesting topic?
I'll start off.
I'll let Jonathan kick that off.
Yeah, I'll start off. And I'll start off by saying that whatever I say next is going to change. We have been responding to changes in the COVID environment throughout this whole time. And, you know, I often get emails from people saying, you know, what's it going to be like? What are the requirements? What's going to happen on my cruise in 3 months, in 6 months? And I can tell them what we're doing right now, but the only thing that I can tell them for sure is that whatever I tell them now is going to change. That's the only, I mean, everything changes so often because we're responding to port requirements, we're responding to country requirements. And so, you know, we're on board right now. We're practicing social distancing. We're using face masks. There's COVID testing prior to the voyages for guests and crew. There is electrostatic cleaning every 4 hours. We are doing temperature scans. There's an onboard health and safety officer. We've hired the health and safety expert that we hired to help advise us on COVID protocols is in place now. And so we're doing all these things that could very well change in the future. It will change in the future in response to the current environment. So what I try to tell people is go to our website. All of our current health and safety information is on the website. So that's where you'll find the most up-to-date information. As far as vaccinations, we're not requiring vaccinations right now, but again, that could very well change in the future. So keep up to date on our website for that information.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. That's very clear. Laura, one of the things that I know that is there have been outbreaks on land, for example, at these little communities, and you know, you presumably have had to adapt or be nimble enough to kind of deal with those situations. So how have you responded to that over the course of the year?
Now you're singing right into my choir there. That's one of my jobs at the company in guest relations and what we call schedule changes, emergency handling. We have a phenomenal shoreside team that can respond literally within hours to adjustments that need to be made. Recently, in April, we were reduced along the coast because of some outbreaks in those small communities to sailing no longer than 23 hours at a time with no more than 50 people on board. Now, our ships on the coast generally hold up to 600 passengers, so that's quite a change. That came in on a Saturday night in the middle of the night from the government. So our teams go to work right away, contacting passengers, getting people rebooked, making sure that we can accommodate. I mean, a lot of these folks, these ports, the only way to get to them is by ship. So you're not going home unless we take you there. So our shore teams are incredible. And as a passenger, you can feel very confident that we will be in touch with you every step of the way. I mean, no matter what's occurring. We had a ship when COVID came about in March that was still out to sea, coming back from Antarctica, was extended stay at sea, trying to find a port of call to come back to. But as I recall, the Cruise Critic reviews on that were pretty darn good. They had a good experience as we made sure they all.
Our members just enjoyed the extra time on board. This is what this is what happened. They loved it, and as I understood, the service was exemplary, and they're just saying, "Hey, a few more cruise days."
Well, and they felt very safe because they had been on board 20-some days. They knew they were well and quarantined and good to go. We just needed to get them home. So our shore teams, our expedition teams, our leadership teams, they are excellent at making sure that everybody is in touch with our guests, and our guests are always our number one priority. Safety couldn't be more important than it is today. So I think I would sail any day of the week with us right now and feel completely confident. So I would hope everybody else does too.
I think that's very reassuring. And as Jonathan said, for the latest information, because things will change, go and look at your website.
Absolutely.
Things are changing daily. So fantastic. Thank you very much for telling us about Hurtigruten. What I'd like to know now is what's new at Hurtigruten. So what I'd like to do. Yeah, sorry, it's your headphones. They're slightly scratchy. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at three kind of different topics within this particular section. And the first one I'd like to take a look at is in terms of ships. And then we'll take a look at destinations and shore excursions. So I know you guys have been working very hard on giving most of your fleet a complete makeover, and indeed incorporating some of the aspects of those new ships onto the older ones. And although there is a certain charm and traveling on ferries, I guess, as they used to be, it's safe to say that the international passenger is demanding more in terms of facilities and cabins. So I haven't been on the new ships. I have been on your refurbished ones. I thought they were stunning. But I hear that on the new builds, there's even more luxury, infinity pools and spas and all that sort of thing. So I think we'll just kind of a quick look at a video, and then maybe Jonathan can just talk to us a little bit more about what's new.
Well, these are our new builds, Roald Amundsen and Fridtjof Nansen, and absolutely gorgeous ships. The newest hybrid electric powered expedition cruise ships in the world, the very first. And one of the topics that came through Cruise Critic, you'll see in Cruise Critic forums, is balconies. There weren't a whole lot of balconies on our coastal ships before, and so we took that feedback, and now literally 50% of the cabins on these new builds are balcony cabins. So we've got, and actually, as Laura might point out, some of those balconies have private hot tubs on them. So, there's a touch of luxury on these new builds, and
too much luxury. Shouldn't it be a bit flooded? Shouldn't you be suffering with the Antarctic climate?
After a long day of exploring, we want you to sit back and relax a little bit. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. We want to mix them both. But yeah, there's infinity pools on the new builds. There's wellness centers with treatment rooms. You can get a massage after a long day of exploring. Multiple restaurants. There's actually 3 restaurants on these ships. We've got sort of a casual eatery, Fredheim. We've got the main dining, Auna. and Lindstrom is our fine dining Norwegian restaurant, which I spent a lot of time in Lindstrom. It is absolutely fantastic. You see marketing photos come out with these, perfect dishes, and they look like they're too perfect. And you're like, no, it's not going to look like that when it comes out. And you go to the restaurant, it's delicious, and it looks exactly like that. So we spent a lot of time there. And there's definitely a Scandinavian feel throughout these ships. All of the refurbishments have that very Scandinavian feel. And so, like, if you go into Fredheim, there's wooden skis and snowshoes on the wall. Hurtigruten's a huge fan of storytelling. And so with our Norwegian heritage, you'll notice that the names of the ships are named after Norwegian explorers. Inside, there's that storytelling with the items on the wall. There's even in Lindstrom, there's actually paintings done by Queen Sonja of Norway on the wall. So there is no doubt on what type of ship that you're on when you're on these ships. It's definitely very Norwegian.
One of the things that that really impressed me were the junior suites that have been were the refurbished ones on the ships that I've been on. Can you just touch briefly on cabins, because I'm sure that's something on our top of viewers' minds.
Mm-hmm. The cabins are exquisite on the new builds. They're if you look at the older ships that we refurbished, we didn't change a whole lot. We did some cabin rearranging and made some new suites that were larger. A lot of the sizes didn't change, but on the new builds, you'll see that the cabin sizes have really expanded, and we've also introduced flexible bedding to a lot of the cabins. So you don't have to worry about choosing a cabin based on if you want to sleep separately or together. You can actually have flexible based on your preference. So that's another point of feedback that we've had and that we've responded to.
That's great, fabulous. Before we move on to the next question, I need to ask the third poll here. So the poll will hopefully be going live any moment. Yeah, there it is. So you can have a look at that, everyone. Over to your right, which I won't go through every question. You can read those because we need to move on. Time is of the essence. What types of destinations are you most interested in exploring? So if you could just choose one of those, and I will reveal the results shortly. Okay, without further ado, destinations. Now, this really is what you guys are all about. So I really want to talk about, as I say, I've just been on the coastal voyage. And actually, Laura, 10 years ago, I just did the short bit of it. But last time I was lucky enough to go all the way south to Bergen from Tromso. And one of the things that struck me that was so amazing is how we went from deep midwinter, it's over the Arctic Circle, to spring in Bergen. We had you'll see in a few minutes the video, we were covered like this with heavy staff fleeces. And then gradually you just feel, the snow melts away. And by the time you get to the Lofoten Islands, and you were with the ponies there, it felt like spring. And then in Bergen, it was sunny. It was extraordinary. I hasten to add, this was April. So we were kind of going through, it was 2 years ago, almost to the day. Anyway, I ramble on. But what I haven't done is been to all those wonderful places like Antarctica, Svalbard, the high Arctic. So I would love to hear a little bit more about, what's new and what areas you'd like to highlight to viewers in terms of what you guys offer. And I don't know who wants to take this one, Jonathan.
Oh, I'll start. I'm excited about a lot of our new destinations. Not that we haven't had a great catalog before. We do pretty much all of the Arctic. We do Greenland, Iceland, Svalbard, as you mentioned, some of the remote islands like Jan Mayen, all the way across the Northwest Passage, now to Alaska. And of course, Antarctica. And as we reposition our ships from north to south or south to north, depending on the time of year, we've really started to add some intriguing stops and itineraries along the way in warmer waters. And in the coming season, we now have a fully transatlantic crossing that we've added, which is a wellness cruise, which will have a couple of stops, but for the most part, it is a decompress, getaway, detox, very wellness-focused journey. I am a sailor at heart, so I don't actually care if we ever stop anywhere, but that's a fantastic voyage because I know a lot of folks really just want to focus on wellness. We've added the British Isles, of course. We're doing a lot of British Isles and the Faroe Islands.
You added 2 more today. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, you did. Adam's on it. You need to get on one of those ships.
I am ready.
We're right in your backyard. Yeah, for sure. The British Isles have been very popular. We're actually doing a Scandinavia voyage as well that incorporates a little bit more of Scandinavia and some ports south of Bergen, which we haven't had a chance to do in many years, Stavanger included. So that's super fun. And I'll give a tease that our CEO is very, very ambitious in covering the world in the coming years with our many additional new builds that will be coming. So don't be surprised to see us even in Asia Pacific and perhaps Africa. Who knows what's on tap? So it's going to be a lot of fun, but we have very exciting destinations coming up.
And I know 2021 was not at the top of everyone's list, but we do actually have really incredible voyages coming up. We actually have eclipse sailings to Antarctica, so you can actually go to on an Antarctica cruise, and we'll hopefully see the eclipse on these voyages. We have it on Fram and Amundsen as well. And those are coming up in late November. The eclipse happens on December 4th. And so definitely want to mention those as well.
That one includes the Falkland Islands, I believe, as well. So you get the full package, Antarctica Peninsula, the Falkland Islands, South Georgia, and, of course, the eclipse, which, wow, I mean, I don't know if you can top that. That's going to be tough.
Astronomers on board. Everyone's going to be very excited. Yep.
Yeah, you might change some people's minds. That poll result might be different.
I know.
I should have mentioned it earlier.
Uh-oh.
I'll go back to it. Okay, now mindful of time, we gosh, this is great. We're chatting away, but we have got another. So I just wanted to talk about now. One of the things that I mentioned right at the beginning of this conversation is those shore excursions. Now, absolute, genuine bucket list, Northern Lights, husky sledding, the king crab stuff. I stayed the night in an ice hotel. So it was absolutely freezing, but I would do it again in a heartbeat because it was one of the most extraordinary experiences of my life. I mentioned the pony trekking, that hiking. We did the snowmobiling at night, which was, scary but wonderful. And I did it with my kids too. Now, so I think what we're going to do now is rather than me just talking about this, I took a lot of video when I was out there, and we are now going to have a look at the video that I took of me and my kids doing a lot of those things. Okay, so that's my little boy in the snow hotel. And that is what it looks like. He's running through that. That's us doing husky sledding. That's my little boy with a husky. That's him actually running the dogs. And those are both of my boys in full gear doing the husky sledding, which was an amazing experience. And that is the king crab fishing that I was talking about.
So great that you got to bring your kids, Adam. I can't say enough about families on board. We love to see the little ones. I tell you, it's changing lives. I mean, honestly, when you take your kids on a voyage like this, truly.
Well, you're absolutely right, Laura. And it's one of the things that really struck me, that how welcoming and going back to that Norwegian hospitality, they couldn't have been kinder and nicer to my boys. There was one waiter, and I'm not making this up. He insisted on helping my youngest with his plate at when he was putting food on and things like that, and often they're doing double duty, so they'll be your waiter, and the next thing is they're doing your room, or they're welcoming you back on board. That's the other thing that really amazed me. But to your point, we've talked a lot about Hurtigruten just generally with these amazing expeditions, but it is perfect. The coastal voyage is perfect for families, and they absolutely loved it. I mean, honestly, those are memories for life. So I just wanted to add at this point that I think it's very important for viewers to know that, again, back to Jonathan's point about things changing, not all of these excursions might be available at time of sailing just because of various COVID restrictions. I'm sure they will be 2022 and 2023, but just to note that they may not be available immediately, and also it depends what country the ship is visiting. So I just wondered if you wanted to talk about anything perhaps that I haven't mentioned, like the daily activities. I know you do town walks and museum visits, or indeed any other excursion I haven't mentioned that you just wanted to touch upon.
Right. I mean, a lot of the Cruise Critic audience will probably have been with us in the past or known about Hurtigruten, and so we just want to point out one of the new things that we've introduced is included activities, included daily activities on our expedition cruises. And so we will do guided town walks or museum visits or visits to cultural centers. And that's in addition to the other optional excursions that you can take part in. So we just want to, increase the value of the trips that you're taking, increase your knowledge of the destinations that you're going to through those included activities.
Awesome. And one of the things that I did mention was the Northern Lights. Now, obviously, the Northern Lights, you can't control them, but there are certain times of year. I think we're going to discuss that in the questions. But one of the things that also really struck me, and which I think viewers may not know about, is that you guys offer a Northern Lights promise. Can you tell us a bit more about what that is, what it means?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we obviously we have a bit of experience with the Northern Lights in Norway, one of the best places in the world to see them. And the season is quite long, actually. If you go all the way up to Svalbard, you can begin to see the lights in September. But the official season on the Norway coast is October to March. And so if you do the full round-trip Bergen 12-day voyage with us in that time frame, and for some incredibly odd reason, there are no sightings of the Northern Lights on the sailing, and the captain has a spotter. The spotter is out all the time, and all of the Northern Lights are logged throughout the voyage. When they're spotted, the captain makes an announcement ship-wide. Everybody comes out on deck. So, but if you happen to not have any sightings on your 12-day voyage, you do get to return the following season for a free cruise to come back and try it again. It's very rare. I will tell you, in the 5 years I've been here, it's very rare that we don't have any sightings. But we do have in your cabin, on the phone, there's a little button that you can turn those announcements off. We certainly don't recommend that because, of course, they can happen any time of the day or night. So the captain will always announce them. And I think, did you see them, Adam, or have you not seen them yet?
Oh, I did see them. Yeah, I did see them. And I've got to say, to your point about that button, it doesn't matter if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you've had a few drinks. When that comes on, everybody got out of bed, and I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and we just ran up there and took these pictures. And one of the things that really struck me and is worth knowing is that when you're out at sea, there's no light pollution. So the lights are even more spectacular. There's just pure darkness, and then they do this, this show for you. So, yeah, as you say, don't turn off that button, because if you're there to see the lights, it doesn't matter what time of night it is.
I remember I was on the ship with my wife, and we were actually eating dinner, and the announcement came on through the speakers, and we looked up at our waiter like, can we She's like, yeah. So we literally got up in the middle of dinner, went outside to look at the lights, and then came back in afterwards.
Yeah, they won't clear your plate. It's okay.
Great. Yeah,
they know why you left. It's okay.
It's a good reason, right?
Yeah.
So great. So thank you very much for explaining all of that. We're going to move to our Q&A, but before we do have the results in for our third and final poll, which hopefully be interesting for you guys to find out what's what. So I will reveal these. What types of destinations are you most interested in exploring? By far and away, the highest amount is Arctic, and that is 61%. So that includes Antarctica and Iceland. Our next one up, is European destinations such as the British Isles. Great. Scandinavia and the European coast, that's 25%. Next up is close to home cruises, North America, Alaska and Canada. And then tropical destinations like the Caribbean, Central and South America, that's 6%. So there we go. That's a pretty strong result there, 61% for the areas that you really do specialize in. So that's good news. So wonderful chat, really, really lovely chat. Great to talk to you guys. And I think hopefully really insightful for our viewers. And I feel that I've learned a lot as well. But we do have some questions which were submitted previously, and I'd be very grateful if you guys could take it in turns to answer these. You've had a bit of time to have a look at them. So I'll kick off with the first one is, are airfares and or gratuity included in the price? Well, that's two questions really. So first of all, are airfares included in the price, and are gratuities included in the price? So who wants to tackle that one?
I'll give that to
Jonathan.
Well, one do airfares, one do gratuities.
No, it's okay. He can do it.
Well, with airfares traditionally not included in the fare, but we do have a air credit
deal. Yeah,
right. We have the offer going right now with up to $2,500 per person for airfare, and that's basically free flights when you're going to these places. So you'll have free flights based on the cost of your flight to different destinations, and we have a credit for others to offset. So normally not included, but definitely right now you'll want to book with that offer, and you'll basically get a good deal on your airfare. And then for gratuities,
sorry, Jonathan, remind the viewers, when is that valid until? The
airfare credit is a promotion that's running through the end of June.
Okay, great, good, plenty of time to book your cruise. Good stuff. Okay, sorry, gratuities.
And then gratuities, it is actually not customary in Norway, and so there's no gratuity policy. It's not expected on our Norwegian cruises. Even on our expedition cruises, you don't feel the need to do it if you don't feel like it. But I can guarantee you, after you've been on an expedition cruise and you see how hardworking and exceptional the crew is, you'll want to anyways.
Yeah, they'll appreciate it, but yeah,
yep.
It's not essential. That's interesting. That I think again is one of the differences between yourselves and perhaps other cruise lines. So this is a good one. I mean, I could answer this one. If anyone's been to Norway, they'll know the answer to this. How much English is spoken aboard the ship?
Oh gosh, I can take that if you want, Jonathan.
Yeah, sure.
English is spoken throughout the ship. Now, you will have a bit of fun while you're there. Of course, we have a huge international demographic on board. So our expedition team in particular, but most all of our staff speak many languages. And you will always have a little Norwegian lesson. There's usually a Norwegian word of the day. And there's a lot of Norwegian that they're happy to teach you. But we do have, when you're, for example, in our lecture halls, or if you're gathered around the evening chat, they will have, discussions in English, perhaps in German and French, depending on the demographic that's sailing with you. But everything is in English. You don't have to worry about that. And we find our demographic on board to be so widely traveled. I mean, there's fascinating guests that you're going to be sailing with, that you're going to learn a lot of languages, as well as just fascinating stories from folks all over the world. So don't worry about that. You will not have to bring your translator. It's okay. Yeah,
absolutely. Just to add to that, the reason I smile is because honestly, when I go to Norway, I'm just shamed by the fact that I can speak to anybody there at any level, and they reply in perfect accentless English back to me. It's the most extraordinary and well-educated country, and it's exactly the same on the ships, so yeah, absolutely. Best time to see the Northern Lights? Good question, Jonathan. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I'll take this one. Northern Lights basically require 4 things: the right location. So if you've heard of the Aurora Oval, and if you haven't, do a quick Google search on that. You'll see that the north of Norway, is right below the Aurora Oval. You want to be in the right place. You need darkness. The northern light activity actually happens year round. You just can't see it because it's not dark, and it's 24 hours of sunlight in the summer. You need to make sure that it's not cloudy when you're looking up at those skies, and that's one of the reasons why I tell people to get on a ship. If you're staying in one location and you want to go and sit at at a hotel in a certain location for a week, it might be cloudy in that location for a week. You get on a ship, you can actually move from one location to the other and move out of those weather patterns. And then you need the lights themselves, which is kind of unpredictable, but very reliable. As Laura said, we give this Northern Lights promise, and we rarely have to fulfill it because they're just always happening, in the north of Norway. And Iceland has a great marketing campaign, but only a sliver of Iceland is above the Arctic Circle, and half of Norway is. And even as Laura said earlier, they kind of fibbed on their airport picture using a picture of Norway. so we are the capital of Northern Lights, I'd say, for Norway.
Yeah. Well, I think Tromso is the self-styled capital of the Northern Lights, isn't it? That's what they say. That's one of the key stops on the way. And in fact, that's where I saw the Northern Lights a couple of years ago. Was just pulling out of Tromso Harbor, which was absolutely stunning.
Yeah, those photos you see online of Tromso Harbor with the Northern Lights over the bridge, those are not photoshopped. They are absolutely authentic. It's just as beautiful as it looks.
And I will just say at this point that there is also an amazing museum in Tromso, which is where you can see the most mind-blowing video. It's about an hour long, I think, of the Northern Lights. There's this guy who just basically goes around northern Norway and Alaska and places like that, filming the lights. And you sit there in this chair that reclines in the round, and it's a fully immersive experience. Wow. So let's say by any tiny sliver of a chance you don't see the light, the real lights, you can go to the Tromso Museum. I highly recommend it anyway, because it shows all the different types of lights and all the different colors. And anyway, it's wonderful. I love that experience. So another question, are there set itineraries like you get on a typical cruise ship? Well, I mean, the coastal voyage is the coastal voyage. I don't know if you want to talk a bit more about the expedition side of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of people said they want to learn more about expedition cruising, and this is the heart of expedition cruising, is flexibility in itineraries. We certainly, when you talk about the middle regions, there's going to be set ports and things like that, Caribbean, North America. But when you talk about the poles, and we're not necessarily going to specific ports because you're in Antarctica and there's not a pier there that's to pull up to. You're going to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and it's going to be determined by the weather and the local ice conditions. And if you aren't able to go to this location, the captain's going to say, all right, it kind of looks like it's ice-free over here, and it'd be a great experience. There's another penguin colony or another research station, so we'll go here instead. And so the heart of expedition cruising is having flexibility in your itineraries and taking the opportunities that the destination affords to you.
Great.
And Adam,
Fantastic.
I want to recommend to your viewers, there was an episode of the Mighty Ships series a couple years ago that highlighted our ship, the MS Fram in Greenland. And it's a fabulous episode because it shows that particular sailing ran into some weather and some ice conditions. And it shows exactly on board how the captain and the expedition team leaders and the crew have to, on the fly, really just adjust the itinerary to take you then somewhere else and to make sure you're still seeing the wildlife and having the experience, because you're iced in. You can't go to where you thought you were going to go. And it's a wonderful episode. And I was even astonished, and I know the story. So that's a great episode to demonstrate what expedition cruising is really all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned weather events, and you just briefly mentioned wildlife. Obviously, you're going to go where the wildlife is. So that's another thing, isn't it? So, I mean, I remember with us, just very briefly, I remember we ran across a pod of whales, and the ship just stopped for a while so we could observe, so people could take pictures, because that's what it's all about, and then it wasn't like we had to rush to get to the next place, but we just stayed there for 20 minutes, the whales did their thing and then went. So, it's that sort of ability. And again, the announcement came across the PA saying, whales on the starboard deck, or whatever it was, So that's worth knowing. I think it's good to have that flexibility. And our last question, because I'm very mindful of time, is and this is quite a big question, really. But if it's up to you guys who wants to answer it. But how would you describe the onboard experience to someone that has only ever experienced large US-based cruise lines, such as Carnival or Royal or Norwegian?
Wow, we can both speak to that. It's not, I know a lot of people probably think, oh my gosh, it's going to be so different. We have programming, we have activities. You can, schedule yourself if that's, what you're trying to do on board. However, I feel like it's more of when you come on board, you settle in, it's very relaxed. You have options. You have so many things to choose from. There's lectures, there's the science center, there's activities out on the deck. We have presentations going on out on the deck, barbecues. There's all kinds of activity throughout the journey. So you can be as busy as you'd like, or you can be as relaxed as you'd like, in addition to what's happening when we pull in and we get off the ship. But everybody is very casual and relaxed in the sense of, you're welcome to do nothing. You're welcome to participate in everything. No, you're not going to stand in queues all day long and feel like you're just a number on board. The crew very much gets to know you. There's nothing so set in stone that you can't be, participating more or less than you'd like. So it's very different. I cruise a lot on what we call the big white ships, and I enjoy that to some extent, but I don't ever feel quite as home or as flexible as I do on our ships. I think it's just an incredible difference.
And just programming wise, it's very educationally focused, very science focused. Our guests are they want to be well educated about the destination that they're going to visit, and they want an authentic experience.
But so just to clarify, just for viewers, you're not going to go on board and expect a big theatre production. You're not going to have a cruise director telling you that there's the Texas Hold'em poker slots special offer tonight. you're not going to be able to try multiple bars and all the rest of it, right?
There's no bingo that I've ever experienced.
Yeah, there's bars, but I mean, you're going to be pulling up water samples from the side of the ship or from one of our tender boats, and then you're going to go look at it under a microscope, and someone's going to explain to you what you're seeing.
And you may have an onboard show, but it may be the locals that have come on board to do a show for you. You know, a very authentic cultural show. You know, or you may have a local. I remember on the Norway coast we had a local, rather local celebrity who had originated before even the coast had an official rescue program. He used to go out and rescue fishermen that got in trouble. Wow. And their ships were sinking, and he would go and bring them in. And so he came on board and did a whole evening lecture one night, and just fascinating. So, you never know what may be happening, but yeah, you won't be seeing, Broadway.
That's great. I think it's important for people to know that, and I think what you do is so extraordinary and authentic that it's such a wonderful experience in itself. You don't need all that sort of stuff. So, guys, we are, we're sort of over time, really. So I really need to wrap this up now. Honestly, I could talk to you about it for hours, as you can probably tell, and hopefully the viewers can. Those 3 times I went really were just mind-blowing, actually, and I couldn't recommend the line enough. So I just want to thank both of you, and well, the viewers as well. I see we've still got a bunch of people who've stayed on for the entire time, so thank you for that, and hopefully we've kept you entertained. And I just was wondering if you guys had any final words that you'd like to say before we wrap up. Laura, do you want to?
Yes, thank you so much, Adam. We have just been so honored to have this opportunity. We appreciate the Cruise Critic platform and the members so much over the years. We always keep an eye on the conversations on Cruise Critic. We're thankful that we have such transparent feedback from your exquisite members. They are very well traveled, and we know they have high expectations. And so their feedback has been key over the years to our continual improvement in customer experience. So we're just excited that this possibility came along, and we're always happy to welcome you guys on board. You are truly family to Hurtigruten. So please feel free. Come anytime. And Adam, we're going to get you back on the new builds really soon because you need an update.
I cannot wait. And Dover's not far away. I'm straight down there. Jonathan, any final words that you'd like to say?
I mean, Laura said it very well, and I'll just touch on the fact that we do have the exclusive Cruise Critic webinar offer, $200 onboard credit per person for Expedition Cruises coming up. So that'll go through May 5th. We also have 2 running offers right now. Aside from that, we've got our Earth Day offer that goes until the 26th, and we've got our airfare promotion separately that goes until the end of June. So please give us a call.
People just need to book right now with that amount of credit and offers, honestly. Hopefully we've convinced you. And thank you, guys. Thank you again. Thank you to the viewers. We have run out of time, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So, well, all I can say is hopefully see you on board soon.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.